October 2018. A father and son disappeared into the Great Smoky Mountains for what seemed like a normal camping trip. They never came back. For 5 long years, their disappearance haunted Tennessee as one of its biggest mysteries, until a researcher's drone captured footage that would change everything. What that footage revealed wouldn't just solve the case, it would rip a family apart forever. October 15th, 2018. Sarah Martinez stared at her phone, her hands shaking. The clock showed 8:47 p.m. David and Jake were 3 hours late. 3 hours that felt like forever. She dialed David's number again, hoping this time would be different. Voicemail. Again. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled to the number she'd been dreading all day. Great Smoky Mountains National Park Emergency Services. This is Ranger Thompson. My ex-husband and my son, they went camping. They should be home by now. They're not answering. Please, something's wrong. 3 days before that panicked call, David Martinez stood at Sarah's doorstep in Knoxville, hugging their 16-year-old son, Jake, goodbye. Jake bounced with excitement beside his father's pickup truck, already loaded with camping gear. Sunday by 6, we'll be back, David promised, smiling that confident smile Sarah used to love. 3 days at Cataract Falls. Jake's been waiting for this trip for months. Sarah watched their truck fade down the street, not knowing she'd never see them alive again. David Martinez wasn't just some weekend camper playing around. 20 years. That's how long he'd been hiking these mountains. He knew every trail, every shelter, every dangerous creek crossing by heart. As an Eagle Scout leader, he'd taught dozens of boys how to survive in the wild. If anyone could keep Jake safe in the Smokies, it was David. But now they were gone. What happened in those mountains would stay hidden for 5 painful years. And when the truth finally came out, it would be more shocking than anyone ever imagined. Dawn broke on October 16th as search and rescue teams gathered at the Cataract Falls trailhead. David's blue Ford pickup sat right where he'd parked it 3 days earlier. Unlocked, keys still in the ignition. Nothing looked disturbed at all. Detective Maria Santos arrived at the scene at 7 a.m. She'd handled missing person cases in the Smokies before, but something about this one felt wrong. The truck is clean, she told Ranger Thompson, looking at everything carefully. No signs of a fight, no blood, nothing stolen. Just their camping gear, gone with them. The trail register showed David's signature, written at 2:30 p.m. on October 13th. His handwriting looked neat and steady. Search dogs picked up their scent right away, following the trail with confidence for the first 1.5 miles along the normal route to Cataract Falls. Then something weird happened. The dogs stopped cold. They walked in circles, whining and confused. The scent just vanished completely. This doesn't make any sense, handler Jim Collins said, scratching his head. These dogs can track scents for miles, even after rain. A nasty storm had hit the mountains on October 14th, followed by strange early snow. Mother Nature seemed to be hiding something. For 48 straight hours, teams searched every single inch of the Cataract Falls area. Helicopters flew overhead, but the thick forest made it impossible to see anything below. Ground teams checked every cave, every shelter, every dangerous crossing they could find. They found nothing. By October 18th, the search had grown to cover over 50 square miles. News trucks showed up. Volunteers drove up from Knoxville, wanting to help. David's entire construction crew took time off work to join the search. Still nothing. We have to think about all possibilities, Detective Santos told Sarah during a hard conversation on day 4. Maybe an accident, maybe an animal attack, maybe they got lost and couldn't survive the cold, or Sarah's voice broke, or what? Sometimes people choose to disappear on purpose. Sarah's eyes filled with anger. David would never, ever leave Jake behind, but as days turned into weeks, that terrible thought started eating at everyone. The investigation into David's life showed cracks in his image as the perfect dad and experienced outdoorsman. Detective Maria Santos sat across from Sarah at the Knoxville police station, a thick folder full of financial papers spread out between them. "Did you know about the debt?" Santos asked gently. Sarah stared at the papers in front of her. Credit card bills showing $30,000 owed. Personal loans she'd never heard about. A second mortgage on David's house that he never told her about. "I don't understand this," she whispered. "We split everything when we divorced. He said he was doing fine with money." The total debt was almost $80,000. Even worse, child support people had been chasing David for missed payments. A court date was set for October 20th, just 5 days after he and Jake vanished into the mountains. "There's more," Santos said carefully. David called in sick to work on October 10th and 11th. His boss said he seemed stressed out, not himself. He asked about taking his pension money out early. Sarah's brother-in-law, Miguel Martinez, painted a different picture. David wasn't running from anything, he said strongly. That boy was his whole world. You should see them together on their hiking trips. Jake looked up to his father like a hero. But even Miguel admitted David had been acting strange lately. Last month, he asked me to promise him something weird. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should make sure Jake knew how much he loved him. I thought he was just being dramatic, you know. Jake's girlfriend, Emma Chin, told them something else that didn't sit right. Jake said his dad kept talking about starting fresh somewhere new. I thought he meant like moving to a different city or something. Jake seemed really excited about it. The insurance angle made things even messier. David had a $200,000 life insurance policy with Jake listed as the one who'd get the money. Since Jake was only 16, Sarah would control that money if both of them were declared dead. I don't want the money, Sarah told Santos, tears running down her face. I just want my son back home. 3 weeks into the search, temperatures in the mountains dropped below freezing every single night. Survival experts said the chances of anyone lasting more than a few days in those conditions were almost zero. On November 15th, exactly 1 month after they disappeared, the active search was officially called off. The first year was pure torture. Sarah refused to give up hope. She hired a private investigator who found nothing new. She organized monthly search parties with volunteers, covering areas the official teams might have missed. Every few months, there'd be a moment of false hope. A hiker would report seeing 2 people who looked like them. Security cameras at gas stations far away would catch grainy video of men who looked similar. Every single lead went nowhere. The hiking community in East Tennessee rallied around Jake and David's memory. Annual memorial hikes brought hundreds of people to the Smokies. A scholarship fund was set up in Jake's name for students interested in nature and science. But as year 2 started, even the most hopeful supporters began accepting the awful truth. They're gone, Sarah, Miguel said during one of their regular coffee meets, his voice heavy. David would have called us by now if he could. Something bad happened up there. The insurance company got impatient. Legal death declarations normally take 7 years, but they can make exceptions in dangerous cases like this. By year 3, Sarah started seeing a grief counselor every week. The sessions helped some, but the questions never stopped eating away at her mind. What really happened? Why couldn't they find even a single trace? In year 4, crushed by legal pressure and her own exhaustion, Sarah finally agreed to the death declarations. The paperwork went through in March 2022, almost 4 years after they disappeared. The $200,000 insurance money went to Sarah as Jake's legal guardian. She used most of it to pay off her house and put the rest in savings. The money felt dirty, like blood money, payment for a tragedy she still couldn't understand. Meanwhile, 600 miles away at the University of Georgia, Dr. Rebecca Chun was perfecting drone technology that would blow this case wide open. Her research focused on black bear populations in remote wilderness areas, places too dangerous for regular fieldwork. She had no idea her drones would soon solve one of Tennessee's most puzzling missing person cases. September 23, 2023. Dr. Rebecca Chun launched her drone from a remote ridge 8 miles northeast of Cataract Falls. The area she was checking had never been searched during the Martinez investigation. It was too remote, too dangerous, too far off any normal trail. The terrain was brutal. Steep valleys carved out by centuries of rushing water. Thick forest that blocked out most of the sunlight. Rock slides that could kill even expert climbers. At 2:47 p.m., something on her screen grabbed Sheen's attention. Deep in a valley so remote, it wasn't even on most hiking maps. The drone's camera picked up shapes that didn't belong in nature. "What is that?" she whispered, adjusting the camera to get a better look. The shapes were hidden under forest growth, barely visible even from above, but they were definitely man-made. Square shapes, what looked like tarp or shelter material. Chun immediately called Park Ranger Thompson, the same ranger who'd taken Sarah's frantic call 5 years earlier. "I need a recovery team at these coordinates right now," she told him, her voice urgent. "I think I found something big." 2 days later, a special rescue team lowered themselves into the valley with ropes. What they found made no sense at all. An elaborate campsite had been carved out of the wilderness. Not some temporary setup, but something built to last long term. A lean-to shelter reinforced with branches and stones. A fire pit surrounded by rocks placed carefully in a circle. Food storage containers hanging from tree branches to protect them from hungry bears. Scattered around the campsite, camping gear that perfectly matched the list Sarah had given police 5 years ago. "It's them," Ranger Thompson confirmed over the radio, his voice shaking. "We found David and Jake's campsite." But where were David and Jake? The team searched the area nearby and found something that made their blood run cold. Hidden beneath a camouflage tarp, weighted down by stones and protected from the weather, was a journal. The leather-bound book was filled with David Martinez's handwriting. The first entry was dated October 13, 2018, the day they disappeared. The last entry was March 20, 2019. They had survived in the wilderness for 5 months. Detective Santos called Sarah at 6 p.m. on September 27, 2023. "We need you to come to the station. We found them." "Are they alive?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "No, but we found answers." In the station's conference room, Santos opened David's journal to the first entry. October 13, 2018. "Jake doesn't know yet, but we're not going back home. At least not the way we planned. I've been lying to everyone, including myself. The debt is worse than I told Sarah. Child support enforcement is threatening jail time. I can't go to prison. I can't leave Jake alone. This is the only way." Sarah's hands shook as she read her ex-husband's words. He planned this. He planned to disappear. Santos turned to the next entry. October 14, 2018. "Told Jake about the detour today. He thinks we're just extending our camping trip. I've been stashing supplies in this valley for 3 weeks. Food, water, purification tablets, winter gear. Jake doesn't suspect anything yet. He's just happy to be camping longer." The early entries painted a picture of careful planning, a desperate father trying to escape his problems. David had been secretly preparing for months. He'd researched off-grid survival, identified remote locations, and systematically cached supplies. But Jake wasn't a willing participant, not at first. October 20th, 2018. "Jake is asking when we're going home. I had to tell him the truth about the legal troubles. He's angry and scared. Called me selfish and I think he's right. But what choice did I have? Prison wouldn't help anyone." November 2nd, 2018. "Jake is adapting better than I expected. His scouting skills are keeping us alive. He built a better water collection system than mine. Still asks about Mom every day. I tell him we'll contact her when it's safe." The winter entries showed both father and son working together to survive. They hunted small game, gathered edible plants, and maintained their shelter against harsh mountain weather. Jake's anger gradually transformed into acceptance, then cooperation. December 25th, 2018. Jake made me a Christmas gift from pine needles and bark. Mrs. Mom. He said he knows she's worried. We're both losing weight but staying strong. Jake is becoming a man out here. February 10th, 2019. Saw search helicopters again today. Jake wanted to signal them. I convinced him we're not ready. Need more time to plan our next move. Jake is starting to question my judgment. But the tone changed dramatically in March. March 15th, 2019. Everything is ruined. Jake fell collecting firewood from the cliff face. The rope anchor failed. 30-foot drop onto rocks. I got to him as fast as I could, but his injuries are too severe. No way to get help without revealing ourselves. My son is dying, and it's my fault. March 16th, 2019. Jake died at sunrise. I held him all night. His last words were, "Tell Mom I love her." I buried him where he can see the mountains he loved. I can't live with what I've done. March 20th, 2019. This is my last entry. Sarah, if you ever read this, know that I love Jake more than my own life. I thought I was protecting him. Instead, I killed him. I'm going to join him now. We'll be together. I'm sorry for everything. The conference room was silent, except for Sarah's quiet sobs. Based on the journal entries, recovery teams located Jake's burial site on a ridge overlooking the valley. David had built a careful stone cairn to mark the spot. The 16-year-old's remains were found exactly where his father described. David's body was discovered at the base of a 200-foot cliff 2 miles from the campsite. The fall was clearly intentional. He had survived Jake's death by 4 days before taking his own life. The coroner's report confirmed the timeline. Both had died in March 2019, meaning they survived in the wilderness for 5 months. Jake's death was accidental, Detective Santos explained to the assembled family. A climbing anchor failed while he was gathering firewood. David's death was suicide. The revelation devastated everyone in different ways. Sarah felt a complex mix of grief, anger, and heartbreak. Her son had died because of his father's selfish decision to run away. But she also understood David's desperation and the impossible situation he'd created for himself. Miguel Martinez struggled with his brother's choices. David wasn't a bad man, he told reporters. He was a desperate man who made terrible decisions. Emma Chen, now in college, remembered Jake's last text messages differently. He was excited about the camping trip, but also worried about his dad. Jake said David had been acting weird, making cryptic comments about new adventures. I wish Jake had told someone. The insurance investigation was complex. David had technically committed fraud by faking his death, but he was also genuinely dead. The insurance company ultimately decided not to pursue criminal charges against Sarah, who had clearly been an innocent victim. The legal aftermath was messy. David's debts died with him, but the moral questions lingered. Had he been a loving father driven to desperate measures, or a selfish man who endangered his son? The community remained divided. Some saw David as a tragic figure overwhelmed by circumstances. Others viewed him as a criminal who caused his son's death through reckless decisions. Sarah found herself defending David even as she grieved Jake. He wasn't evil, she told the Knoxville News Sentinel. He was broken. Desperate people make desperate choices. The discovery raised uncomfortable questions about mental health, financial pressure, and family support systems. Could David's tragedy have been prevented if he'd asked for help instead of running away? David's situation, overwhelming debt, legal troubles, family pressure, was tragically common. But most people in similar circumstances don't disappear into the wilderness with their children. David's mistake was thinking he had to solve everything alone, said Dr. Patricia Williams, a family crisis counselor who studied the case. He saw disappearing as his only option when other solutions existed. Sarah used part of the insurance money to establish the Jake Martinez Memorial Fund, providing emergency financial assistance to families facing child support crisis. The fund has helped dozens of families avoid the desperation that consumed David. She Also advocated for better mental health resources for divorced fathers facing financial difficulties. If David had talked to someone, a counselor, a support group, even just a friend, maybe he would have seen other options. Miguel Martinez eventually found peace with his brother's memory. David loved Jake more than anything in this world. He made terrible choices, but love was his motivation. That doesn't excuse what happened, but it helps me understand. On a cold October morning in 2023, exactly 5 years after the disappearance, Sarah Martinez stood at Jake's graveside in Knoxville's Highland Memorial Cemetery. Father and son were finally buried together. Their 5-year separation ended. The funeral drew hundreds of people. Fellow hikers, Jake's classmates, David's co-workers, and community members who had followed the story for years. Sarah's eulogy focused on the David she remembered before desperation consumed him. David taught Jake to love the outdoors, to be self-reliant, to protect the people he cared about. Those lessons kept them alive for 5 months in impossible conditions. David's final mistake doesn't erase the good father he was for 16 years. Sarah returned to work as a nurse, finding purpose in helping others through their worst moments. She never remarried, focusing her energy on honoring Jake's memory and preventing other families from experiencing similar tragedies. On quiet evenings, she sometimes reads David's journal entries that weren't related to their survival. Passages where he wrote about Jake's intelligence, his humor, his growing maturity. Those entries remind her of the father David had been before fear and desperation destroyed him. "I forgive David," she says now. "Not because what he did was right, but because forgiveness is how I heal." Jake would want us to forgive. The mountains kept their secret for 5 years, but technology and persistence finally revealed the truth. Sometimes the most unbelievable discoveries aren't about what we find, but about understanding how ordinary people facing impossible circumstances can make choices that change everything forever. In the end, David Martinez got his wish. He and Jake were together, but the cost was higher than anyone should ever have to pay.